Hey everybody, welcome back to WASSON Cornwall, and I'm going to surprise these guys and jump straight into it while they're mid-drink. Thank you so much for coming back and checking out the series as we carry on recording these sessions. And today I'm joined by Matt and Dave from Roll The Dice Cornwall. Who wants to do the elevator pitch for who is and what is Roll The Dice Cornwall?
Okay. Well, we are a non-profit community interest company with the sole aim of improving social, emotional, mental health through in-person gaming. Boom. That's it. That's our tagline.
Which I think is very concise and very to the point, and I think it couldn't have hit the nail further into the head. I think it is an absolute perfect way, because I've only really met you guys over the past sort of year through your event with Roll The Dice Cornwall down in Helston, and it was a real eye-opener for me to see that not only have you now become a shop and a business, but you actually are trying to drive forwards a community-driven gaming club, which is kind of the point, really. Like, we live in an area of the country where we are seeing a lot of poverty, we are seeing a lot of people struggling to get by, we're living paycheck to paycheck, and, you know, it's hard. And when you've got hobbies like these, they're great for your mental health, but they do attract people who have mental health conditions, people who want to find escapism, and you guys have found a really perfect way of bringing that community together in your area, because once more, we're in an area of the country where you can't just hop on a bus and go to the local club. We are 8 miles away from everything. Like Helston's 8 miles away from like Penzance or Truro, and you know you're talking like 2-hour bus rides and stuff like that. But you guys have managed to find a community in Helston and hopefully draw people in from further afield and really give people something that they need. And it's absolutely incredible. Where did Roll the Dice begin?
I think it's worth just saying as well, just before we move on to that question, you say you only reworked in the past year. That's because we've only existed for the past year or so.
Yeah.
So this actually began. Dave was a primary school teacher at Brieg. I don't remember the name of the actual school.
Brieg School.
Brieg School. There we are. That was simple. At Brieg School, and at Brieg School, there were a bunch of kids who wanted to play 40k. So me and Dave and another couple of lads called Rob and Pete were regularly gaming, and Dave asked me if I'd be willing to help out. So we went along, we started this. We ran it for what, term or two?
Yeah, about a term.
And then Dave got a different job. But we kept running into the kids over and over again, and they kept asking the same question, you know, when are you going to start up the gaming group again? And so we talked about it, but it wasn't really until some of the kids, so I'm a Methodist minister, my wife's a Methodist minister, and some of the kids ran into Rebecca, my wife, and they were like, when are Matt and Dave going to start Roll the Dice? And so she came home and said, are you going to get on with it? And so we went, yeah, right. So yeah, back in January 24, it's a little country chapel in Brieg, a place called Breeny. It is literally in the middle of nowhere, and they offered us space for free. So we started off and we had like 6 or 7 kids at the first session.
6 kids at the first session, which we were worried it was just going to be the 2 of us for 2 hours. Then we could get some gaming in, but
and then we said we'd run it every Thursday during term time, and we've been able to mostly keep to that. There's been the odd ones where we've not been able to do, but through that we started to encounter parents who started to ask us, are you running anything for older groups? We started getting messages, are you going to run anything for other people and other groups? And it just grew and grew and grew. And so we started off, we went from Breeny, then went to Porthleven.
Yeah, so May 24, we started our fortnightly adult gaming sessions, which is really hard to market.
Yeah.
You know, we toyed with the idea of Roll the Dice after dark, but it's a little
50 Shades of Roll the Dice.
Yeah,
there was lots of bad names that went around.
Probably not something you want to associate with having a kids club.
No.
But
we just call it Roll Dice.
Yeah,
and
adults gaming sessions.
Now, as part of that, one of the things that happened when we first started the kids group is we put out a plea to the gaming community going, look, we've got these kids coming up. We started up a GoFundMe. We managed to get, so we about 600 quid from the GoFundMe when we first started. The church gave us a grant of 500 quid. So with that, we were able to purchase paints and brushes and things. But also, members of the community started sending us donations of models and scenery. I've got a great photo somewhere. I'll send it to you at some point.
Do it.
Of just Dave like looking like a terrain goblin behind my entire dining table filled with terrain that people had donated to us.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but because of that, we had a lot of second-hand stuff, and we started buying up second-hand models because we said, look, it's an expensive enough hobby anyway, and like you said, with a lot of the deprivation for the kids, it's an expensive hobby to get into, and so we made a commitment that with any second-hand stuff we'd get, we started up. So we have a couple of sessions when we run Breeding with the Kids Club, and one of them is we call the Tuck Shop, and it's basically second-hand market for the kids. And we made a commitment that we would buy for 40% retail, and sell for 50% retail.
Yeah.
Maximum
To the kids, so that we could then, and we would use that to fund the work of the C.I.C, so we could become self-sustaining.
Yeah.
But that market started to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Which is kind of good. It is exactly what you kind of want.
It was great, but we discussed one of the first times we ran it, one of the kids walked in with like 50 quid.
Nice.
And it turns out it wasn't his money, it was his uncle.
Right.
Who'd heard what we were doing and had gone, oh, just if they've got any of this. And it was just like, are you buying this or is your uncle buying this?
Yeah.
And it was from there, so it kind of became, and especially once we started the other group, we started offering what we had to them as well. And out of there, the shop idea kind of started to take hold. The community, we were hiring up the community hall in Porthleven, and they offered us the what was it called, the committee room, as a shop that we could set up and pull down. So 4 days a week we were doing that, and we started getting modern. Not modern,
like a new stock
coming.
Yeah, I remember seeing posts where you guys were like, okay, this company's now sent us board games, this company's now sent us up, and you were like, we have a shop with our community club now, which is great because that also means it's not just like subs and stuff like that. If people want to buy something, that then puts it back into the club as well, which is incredible.
And then it just, because of that, it started to get more and more popular. But the problem with it, I think, you can talk better about this, but with the committee room, it was like, you can set it up 4 days a week, but when you're not using it, all needs to be set down, packed away, taken home. And it was like, I think for you more than me, it was just mental.
It was that kind of drain. We spent,
it's a lot of work.
We had it for 10-hour sessions, running in that time everything from home-ed groups, kids club, adult sessions in the evenings.
Combined with schoolwork for you.
Yeah.
So, I should just clarify here, Dave takes Roll the Dice into schools. So basically, he used a fantastic thing, SEHM?
SEMH.
So close.
Our the remit of this is using games to improve social, emotional, and mental health.
Yeah.
I work with 2 secondary schools locally to where we are.
Amazing.
And we do therapeutically applied tabletop role-playing game sessions.
That's awesome.
Because it's, well, as you know, doing this, the outcomes you can have are just phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree. It's so something that I've always been a big advocate for is that everybody should try a TTRPG or an RPG at some point in their life, because it is kind of like therapy, because you feel real emotions without the consequences of real world consequences.
You can punch people without getting into trouble.
Yeah, and although there is still a social aspect of it where, like, there is still a chemistry around the table and stuff like that, but if you can, make sure that it's in a safe environment and that coming away from the table in the game that, you're not affecting your own relationships, it is crazy. Like, you can do wild things, both good or evil, and then go, oh, how did I feel about that? Well, you know what?
it very much is. It's, for me, my background was 14 years in primary teaching. I've seen many different interventions and therapeutics come through. It's this wonderful kind of amalgamation with play therapy and art therapy and these creative therapies, but within a structure that allows them to try to learn and to practice social skills amongst other things. And then if it fails, there's not a high stakes to that.
Exactly.
We've had amazing. We first started doing this before Christmas, going into schools. We've had amazing feedback. Just through running the sessions, I see now young people who were quite socially isolated now with groups of friends.
That's amazing.
you know, and it got to the point where this week, in fact, in one of the schools, a young lady approached me, year 10 or 11, and started talking to me about kind of the fact that she helps run a school D&D club that's run by the students.
It's kind of the dream, really, when you can give somebody else the spark to then go, I want to run this, and you're like, that's all this is about.
Well, then she was, you know, I had a spare copy of a 5e player's handbook, and I went, would this be useful for you? And do you need dice or anything like that? And she went, do you know what, thank you, but there's this new shop that's open in Helston where they do like mystery bags of dice. I went, oh really? Is that Roll the Dice? And she went, how do you know? And I went, that is me.
That's my chance.
Roll the dice.
I am, and it was this lovely thing, and just
I'm no longer Dave. I roll the dice.
Changed my name, but this you know, to be able to then go out and help not only you know, the small targeted groups that we're working with, but to help the young people then create something that's self-sustaining within that.
Yeah.
So we're going to donate some dice to her.
Amazing.
And that group. You know, and we'd love to again reach out to other secondary schools or even primary schools in the area and help set things up, because you know, it's so beneficial.
And I actually, so my eldest is, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about which school he goes to or anything like that, because you know, data protection, and also he's a child.
He goes to Hogwarts.
He goes to Hogwarts, and you know, but so their school does have an after-school tabletop club, but because one of the teachers that runs it has unfortunately been ill, that club keeps getting cancelled, and I'm like, well, I know a couple of guys that I might then push towards that school and be like, hey, why don't you guys? So actually, I'll talk to you about that after this, because that's actually, I think that's amazing, and I think more secondary schools should be doing it, because again, we live in an area where there aren't that many secondary schools compared to places like, I'm originally from Nottingham, where, you know, every district has multiple schools because there's millions of people in one area, where here, you know, we've got kids coming down from Bodmin to go to Pen Air, because, you know, that's the biggest school in the county, so therefore they have to take in people from all over. So we have all this rural living where nobody can really get about, you know, you're talking 2 to 3 hour bus rides, and then to be like, you know, if you imagine going to work and you're traveling 2 to 3 hours in the morning, spending 7 to 8 hours working all day, and then you've got to like go back 2 to 3 hours. That's not fun for a kid.
No.
So if you can give them at least one day a week where they've got a club or something they can escape to, or something they can like, you know what, I'm gonna go play D&D for them. I'm gonna go play Warhammer. I'm gonna go play a board game. I think that's perfect.
And it's not just the kids. So before I was in Cornwall, I worked in Nottingham for 6 years. Yeah.
Hey!
So yeah,
we're both from a hellhole.
Oh yeah. Well, I was only there for 6 years.
Oh, look at you.
I'm from Derby originally, so you're both right.
We'll talk about this after the stream.
Yeah. But so when I was in Nottingham, we were. So I was, part of my jobs while there was I was a university chaplain, and we were approached by a couple of students who wanted to do D&D at the university, and it's something that both me and my wife had played quite a lot, but we had at that point Abby, who's my daughter. She's now 8, but back then when they approached us, she was only 2. And so what we ended up saying to them was, absolutely, we will run D&D for you, but you'll need to come to our house, because that's a lot cheaper than getting a babysitter.
Yeah.
And when we made a point of saying to them, look, it was usually a Friday night, and we'd say, look, we'll roll dice at 7:30, but if you want to come, we usually feed, and we usually have lunch, tea together at 5:30. So if you want to come down for food, you're more than welcome.
That's nice.
But if you don't want to, just show up to roll some dice at 7:30. And without fail, every single member would show up at 5:30. And in the end, we were running 4 sessions for 4 different groups.
Wow.
So basically 1 a month, and it was each one was a real mix of ages. So you would have the university students, but you would also, I think our oldest member was like 50 or so, and you would have this real mixture, this mixed economy, and without fail, every single person would show up at 5:30 for food, and you would do so you'd eat together, you would do D&D. And then, like 2 o'clock in the morning, you kick them out the house.
Yeah.
Because they'd finish the game and then just carry on talking. And it's like,
it is such a social thing, though.
It massively is, and it's so desperately needed.
Yeah.
Just to be able to go, both for the kids but also for the adults, to go, look, there is nothing that's expected of you. I remember, it's a really popular thing. I've heard it so often now, but someone saying that libraries are one of the few places where you can exist in modern society without an expectation that you have to spend money. I really think gaming groups ought to be the same.
I actually agree with you on that one, because something that I try and instill, because we do the occasional bit of teaching D&D, Steph, Jack and I, in Happy Piranha, and it's something I think that you guys do as well, is go, you could spend all your money on this if you want to. You know, I mean, look at this room. This is an example of me going, this is what I spend my money on.
Yeah.
But you don't need to do that. All you need to play this game is maybe a set of £5 chess dice and your imagination.
Yeah.
At most, you can get all of the resources for free. You can get all of the player handbook stuff from the D&D Beyond website for free, and the character sheets for free. The only thing I'd say that you need is a group of friends after that, or people that are willing to sling some dice. You don't need to spend all of your money on things like tabletop RPGs.
No.
Just turn up and have a good time. There's no expectation of you. You're going to end up chatting, and then after 2 sessions, you're like, oh my god, your character's amazing doing this, and oh my god, we could do this, and you'll be amazed at how quickly the artist inside you and the performer goes, and those like synapses start firing. It's such an incredible thing, and I think there's a lot with people wanting that premium service every now and again, but they're people like myself who then go, well, no, this is now my life. But it definitely doesn't need to start there. No. And what you guys offer is a place that's safe for people to come along and try something new. And actually, you picked on a point that I really want to talk about, is it's not just kids now, is you have different age categories and different age ranges, and not just for TTRPGs, not just for TCGs, but for wargaming, for people who want to try something new. They're like, oh, I want to try bolt action. You guys have got armies ready to go. Same with Warhammer, same stuff like that. So people can come along, and there's no expectation for people to have to spend money on it to come along and play. You're like, we've got the space.
And quite early on, you know, as Matt touched on earlier, you know, we decided that we wanted to try and break down as many barriers as possible. And unfortunately, cost is one of those that's huge. So we own, I think between the C.I.C and then kind of myself, Matt, and a couple of volunteers, for 40k alone, we've got like 11 combat patrols that people could just come in and be like,
donated.
Can I play? And some are asked, were donated.
But that's I think is what's perfect, because 40k is such a big intro to the hobbies. And, you know, a lot of people like Games Workshop, Warhammer, they have obviously been around in Nottingham for a long time. They have, you know, they pretty much kickstart a lot of people's interest in the hobbies, and a lot of people, when you talk about tabletop, they go, oh, do you play Warhammer then? And then you say, oh no, I play D&D. Is that like Warhammer? You know, it always ties back to Warhammer. So the fact that, again, if you guys are like, I want to get into Warhammer, awesome, go down. These guys have got 11 combat patrols that you can try out.
And then we kind of then branched, looked at other systems, both in terms of genre, but also price. So which is why we ended up going into Kings of War and bolt action. You know, so we've got sci-fi, we've got fantasy, we've got historical.
The best one we have by a million miles is Ramshackle Games. There's a game system, a free one called Mini Gangs.
Nice.
And you just need 4 characters: fighter, healer, shooter, and
leader.
Nice.
That's it. And one of the things that, when we first started out, and we still do it to this day, is that when a kid comes to a group for the first time, they get 4 free minis. So they get 4 free minis which they can paint, paint, and then they just have to decide which one's your fighter, which one's your leader, which one's your shooter, which one's your healer. And it's been such a wonderful way of just introducing so many people to the concept of gaming, to the point where, especially, there's been so much. D&D's become really popular amongst our kids and our adults. But we first got an inkling that it would be so when, with mini gangs, they started going, how can we home rule extra rules? And so you've got these 8-year-olds coming up to you going, Matt, how do I murder someone in this game?
Yeah.
And it was like, and usually it was the girls.
Oh,
the girls are incredibly violent. The blokes, the lads are like, hey, we need to negotiate our way through this conflict. Like, how can we? Like, I ran a game for a bunch of the kids a while back that was, it was in one of the old White Dwarfs. It was Orc Bar and Brawl.
Okay, yeah.
And the idea is you get 4 orcs in a room and you fight each other, last one standing. So I ran this, and the first time I ran it was with 3 lads, and they ganged up on me because they said, "Why are we fighting each other? We're friends." Ran it with the girls. unbelievable amounts of backstabbing. Just like you go for him and I will. Actually, I'm going to hit you with a chair. And it was just like, oh my word, I'm not sure what
The chaos.
here. Yeah.
But I think that's also great. Is that like people when they play games, is it brings out a different side of you. Not that it's like a worse side or that's what's lurking deep inside, but again, it gives you that chance to know consequences. Try things out, and again, it's that social aspect, it's that therapeutic aspect of things, and I just think it's amazing. I would like to actually ask you guys, where did your hobby journeys begin? Where did, like, obviously, like, because now you are running a community-driven organisation, and you are absolutely smashing it. But where did it begin for you personally, and did you ever think this would be where that led you?
Go on.
Okay.
You filled that one first.
So, I got into this as a kid, like so many people do. It was a neighbour who handed me a box of the old Rogue Trader orcs.
Yep.
And
God,
paints.
that's a while back.
Yeah. Well, he'd had it for a while. So this was, what, 30 years ago or so? Yeah, I'm 40 now. Yeah, so 30 years ago when I was 10, I got handed a box of these orcs. Really enjoyed it. Found out we're living in Hull at the moment with my family. So at the age of 10, discovering that there was a Games Workshop store in Hull. And just went through it that way. Like many people, dropped out when maturity hit.
Yep.
And then it was just after I met my wife and we got married. And my wife's a very crafty person. And there was this one day we'd newly married, and we had a day off together, and it was cold, it was winter, so we decided to stay at home, and she spent the day sat at the living room table creating like a bracelet, and I spent the day playing computer games. And I just had this revelation at the end of the day. I had nothing to show for what I'd done, apart from achievements on a console, which is fine. Like, that's a good thing for a lot of people, but I also realised that I hadn't actually seen Rebecca for the entire day. Even though we'd been in the same room. And so we had talked in the past about stuff that I enjoyed doing, and she encouraged me to pick up next time we went, I think it was Hobbycraft, to pick up a box of models and some paints and see where it goes. She's regretting that now. Because once started, one of the things I loved about the hobby more than anything else was that it gave me permission to be creative in a way that's unconnected to work.
Yep.
In any way, shape, or form. Like Dave once pointed out to me, and I still think it's very true, I tend to pick my armies for 40k depending on my ability to customise them.
Yep.
So every single one of my armies, there isn't a single one, I think with the exception of my orcs, which is just a weirdness, which doesn't have models with a high level of kit bashing.
Which you think the orcs be the one that you kit bash the most with their lore?
Not.
They're kit bashed enough.
Like shortly after getting back into it, I don't know if folk are still familiar. I think it's still quite a big community, but people started getting into Inquisitor 28, and I started getting into it. And no one to play with in my area. Like the only gamers I knew were really 40k, but just this concept of, I think Dan Abnett talks about it in one of the introductions to his Eisenhorn books, about there being like, in the far grim dark future there is only war, except where there isn't. And you read the Inquisitor novels, you do this, and you got this idea of what does the whole background of imperial society look like. And partly because of my job, I became quite highly fixated on the ecclesiarchy. Yeah,
I mean, it's a very interesting thing that I imagine that you would latch onto, because obviously, being a man of the cloth, wanting to see the other side of like the what ifs.
Well, the Alan Bly, who was a writer for Forge World for one of their lead writers before his passing, God rest his soul, did a lot about this, and I really love the way in which he approached so much of the 40k universe. I mean, you only really need to look at the Badab War books that he authored just to get that sense of yes, everything is, but actually there's also this thing, and the ability to take something that's based in the real world, twist it, change it, make it into something brand new, and then represent it on the tabletop. And it's just glorious. It's madness. So a lot of my stuff is, I often say, is more artistic and absolutely pointless on the battlefield, but is just glorious. The only exception to that is I've really fallen in love with World Eaters.
Okay.
And I do enjoy slaughtering. Listen, there are
Because there's no consequences
There's no
on the
consequences.
tabletop.
Just
And-
the tears of your opponent.
there's just something
Generally mine.
really adorable. Like when Dave and I throw down, Dave's like, right, I need to make sure I get these objectives. I need to do this, and I'm just like, who's your war boss?
Yeah.
He's going to die.
Yeah, and I
That's-
think
yeah.
yeah, that's very, very fun. I love that's your intro in 40k,
Yeah.
and that's stuck to now.
Yeah.
Like not only like
Yeah.
your intro back then, but it is stuck to now, and it's
So-
been strong throughout your hobby
The
career.
other thing as well, and I think Dave may echo some of this, is that one of the things that I've struggled with throughout my life is depression.
Yeah,
And I found that the hobby, whether it be wargaming, whether it be role-playing games, has really helped, has become almost the balancing factor in my life, in that when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm able to sit down and create.
yeah,
When I'm happy, I can sit down and create. When I'm sad, I can sit down and create. And it's almost as if the creative aspect for me has been as much therapy as anything else.
yeah.
You know, you can. I usually joke with people that you could trace my mental health based on the quality of my paint jobs.
I can match that.
And so for me, just being able to be part of a hobby like this has been so beneficial with everything
Yeah.
else. So yeah.
And hopefully it's something as well that you can pass on to your community and to people like from the kids groups right there who to help me. Look, yeah, you know, I also suffer with this. And
Yeah.
being open about your mental health conditions,
Yeah.
I think, really, really does help other people. I'm going to jump across to you. Where did your hobby journey begin?
So again, like everybody, you know, as a child in Derby, there was a
2 options:
Yeah.
Warhammer
Yeah.
or crime.
or football. Did a bit of football, but the primary school, I don't. My memory's awful, but I don't really remember much at primary school other than a couple of fun science lessons and the fact that there used to be a group of us who used to go into the library with some GW models and probably make up 90% of the rules.
Yeah.
But just have that kind of
Garage
that
hammer.
time
Yeah.
together. And then like everything, you know, you as a teenager you think it's not cool anymore. You know, but also coupled with moving away and not knowing people, not having the groups or the community there.
Yeah.
And then really kind of it all petered out. I've always loved the lore. I'd still kind of read the books, played like the video games, things like that. And then I think everything really kick-started again as actually during COVID. So as a primary teacher at the time, with all the lockdowns, all of the teaching moved online.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I couldn't face doing 10 hours staring at the laptop doing lessons and lesson prep and all this sort of thing, and then spending some more hours playing video games. So I got massively back into board games at that point. You know, I dabbled here and there, but kind of really got back into modern print board games. Then I went through a period of ill mental health. And a friend actually up in Bath took me to the Warhammer shop there and just said, look, when he is feeling quite low, he finds it really therapeutic to just sit and make and paint.
Tunnel vision on.
It's that mindfulness. So then I started that, and then that kicked the bug back in.
Yeah.
This was at a time where I'd had a bit of time off work because of the ill mental health, so funds weren't great. So I reached out to the community online and I purely asked, does anybody know where or the best place to get cheap miniatures from? Simply that. And then I was inundated with offers of some freebies, some free
Nice.
paints, you know, personally, and that was
The community
lovely.
is
It rallies.
Absolutely.
honestly, like, so I found that on social medias and everything where, you know, usually we're like putting ourselves against the best or we're comparing ourselves and it can be really detrimental, but the tabletop community is the nicest community in the world. They will rally so fast to help you out. And like, it's incredible. So I'm glad that happened for you.
Yeah, honestly, it brought my wife to tears at some point. It was just lush.
That was just the quantity of the stuff.
Yes. No. The quality of my painting. No.
Yeah.
And then...
Oh God,
and
you're
then-
wasting
I
your
know.
time.
Were you painting?
Yeah, all right. I don't have time for that anymore.
tell
And
me
then it got
about
to the point where I kind of realised, oh, okay, so I've now got a bit of Dark Angels Force again. Be quite nice to learn to play. And my brother was still playing on and off. I actually, reached out to Matt over Facebook. That's where we
Our
organise
eyes
things.
met across a crowded Facebook page.
Yeah.
Honestly,
It happens.
Yeah.
time stopped. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And then we started gaming, and then we were then having conversations about mental ill health, and then having conversations about the fact that we were having conversations, and we
Yeah.
kind of quickly went into this kind of thing of
Something
where,
here,
as a bloke, what my wife does, which is get her group of friends and many bottles of wine, and they will just sit and they will talk about everything. Like I feel really uncomfortable in that situation.
Yeah, same.
But standing across each other, my Space Marines versus his Orcs originally. I miss them. I could beat those. And you're playing, and then the occasional kind of how things going, comes out.
It does.
I think it's because you've also got that safety net. Where if it starts to become a bit too uncomfortable, or if you
can tunnel back in on the game.
Yeah, you really don't want to talk about something. You're able to kind of, you've got the shared thing that you're doing, as opposed to just sitting staring at each other with a glass of wine type thing.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you on that one. I found that between either playing a tabletop game or between an RPG and stuff, either I'm there for the escapism to go, you know what, I've had a really rough day, and then you go into it, and although I could go into it the worst triggered PTSD ever, and then if I'm with my friends around this table, within 20 minutes of playing a character, I'm like, I've forgotten who I was and I've escaped. Or I'm slinging dice and I'll be chatting about the game, so that's really cool, that's cool. How are you? You know what, I'm not too great at the moment. And like that there for me, I'm already like, oh, I'm gonna go. But it is one of those things where like you can take it or leave it, and the person opposite you has probably been in that position before as well.
For sure.
And I think you're right. I think it's like not necessarily just a gender thing, but like we do approach things mentally in different ways. And if you can offer that to somebody, which you guys do, you offer it to all age groups with your community-driven organisation, and the fact that you've both been through the ringer, you've both absolutely, been there, and you can say to them, look, you don't have to tell me anything, just here's some dice, stop throwing them at me.
And I think that there are so many wonderful positives about what we've been able to create so far. But through both, we've worked with children with a variety of traumas and neurodivergence. We've got adults that come through for either our tabletop or our D&D or our board games, who again have got a huge variety of life experience. And everyone brings their own baggage, and it's just wonderful to see sometimes someone who might be a little bit nervous, a little bit anxious that first time, and then by session 2 or 3 they're laughing, they're having a whale of a time, they're present, and you can see that kind of glow emanating from them. Even harking back to some of the kids sessions, we've got young people and children who we have their adults come in the first session and go, no, I'm going to stay with them because
just
they're really nervous, they're anxious, they probably won't let me leave ever. And then by session 2 the kids are like, all right, go now, bye.
This is my space, I feel safe, I can be left alone. But that's amazing. That's incredible. That's exactly what we want from this community.
One of the things we used to say right at the beginning of everything was that the game becomes the excuse.
Yeah.
Like you're gathering together, but it's the excuse to gather together.
Yeah. It gets people out of the house. It gives them the reason to want to. Yeah. And it's the only thing I can akin that to, that people who necessarily aren't into tabletop, is when COVID, just before COVID, when Pokemon Go first came out in 2016, and we saw a massive influx of people with real neurodivergence, PTSD, social anxieties, agoraphobia, who are like, I do want to leave the house because I'm really into this, and and that, I think, if you can get somebody out walking, if you can get somebody out of the house, and I know from personal experience with PTSD, I locked myself in here for 2 years because I was like, I cannot go out. So I built the bubble up, but eventually the business led it to things like this, where I have to engage with you guys, and I'm so grateful for things like that. So the fact that you offer that to people, I will always have the utmost respect for you, because I know exactly firsthand how that feels to want to then go out to these events.
So I like to think in that example, rather than your kind of bubble has popped, your bubble's not there anymore. All that's happened is that we give that excuse or that chance for that bubble to just become much wider.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing. In terms of obviously Roll the Dice and where that began, obviously now where you've got to, you've now started doing events as well. So like, you've been around for a year, and this is what I find impressive as well, is that you went, okay, well there's a real need for this, and you had your first event last November. Tell us about that.
Can we just clarify here? When we first started this, we said, wouldn't it be great in 2 or 3 years if we ever get to the point of being able to run our own event? To be running it in November after starting in January was mental.
Yeah.
It was absolutely incredible, because again, we live in an area of the country where we don't have access to everything. We don't have the ease of getting about, especially for the younger members of our community or the disabled members of our community. And you were like, right, we can get it as central as we can. Let's go. What was the event?
So that was our not overly catchily titled Southwest Cornwall Games Expo. But the idea stemmed from earlier in the year when we met Sarah from Rivalcraft.
Yes.
Gaming CNEX.
He does amazing
amazing stuff. And we were chatting about the idea of basically almost, I think at that point mentally, it was almost a small craft fair of like-minded geeks, for like-minded geeks.
Through my day job, we'd done things similar for church events and things like that. So it was like, oh yeah, that's not too difficult. Just a bunch of tables, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. And then it
turned into more than that, didn't it?
It turned into more than that.
Initially, we were like, okay, we'll do this, and we're going to use the Porthleven Community Hall. And then Dave showed up to one of our directors meeting and went, yeah, I've got 17 tables booked. And we looked around the venue where we were going to like, yeah, we need somewhere bigger. So then, graciously offered the Epworth Hall, which also gave us the opportunity to have 2 spaces. So we're able to have an open gaming space where our board game library was there, and then vendors upstairs. And I think in the end, I can't remember the number of tables, but I think we had 17 vendors, many of them going across 2 or more tables. But for us, it was about... The only one that was a real pain in the arse was that Dragonborn Industries.
I know, right.
They're awful. They are just the worst.
It's fine, 'cause they brought a dog, so it's
they brought a dog, and that made everything better. So,
that's our saving grace, is that I have a dog that helps me with PTSD when I'm out and about.
Honestly, it's awesome. But no, and for us putting it together, it was about putting on an event for the community, both the creators and businesses and groups, but also the wider public as part of that community. So we were determined to make it free for anybody who just wanted to come in, but also as low cost as possible for the vendors, that it literally just covered the cost of the venue. And that was really successful.
We
were really blessed in that the Epworth Hall basically let us use it for comparing prices, but they literally let us use it for £100 for the day. Which is just insane.
It's very kind of them.
It's
awesome.
And that allowed us, and it was the entire venue. There was I think we had a few issues on the day with the venue itself, which is just comes down to questions of access. One of the things that we were really quite passionate about is we wanted to make sure it was accessible as possible. Because we've got family members who have mobility issues. We work with people who have mobility issues, and Epworth ticked a lot of the boxes right up to the point where you got to the stair lift. Which was fine, but was the world's slowest thing.
Well, at least it had one. Cornwall has a lot of listed buildings that don't necessarily have had access work done to them, and so I think that you guys did so amazingly well to be able to get that space, and you put on an amazing event. And as a vendor that was there, not only did I have a great day in terms of just meeting the community, I got to meet other content creators, I got to meet other people like yourselves, and we'd talked socially online and been like, oh, that's cool, it's amazing to see you, but I actually got to meet you guys, which is where I was like, look, I'm running this series, I'd love it if you guys could come in. And without things like that event, I wouldn't have been able to meet or carry on with certain things. So it's even to people like us, let alone people who need somewhere to escape or need somewhere or want somewhere to be to celebrate their nerdship. It was a real community day, and it was absolutely amazing. But it has led to the fact that you're doing another one.
We are doing a summer one.
Stupid idea. Yes,
So
I can't wait.
let's plug the next event.
So it's Saturday, August 2nd.
Yep.
This time it's still in Helston.
A little bit
it's
more out
at
of
the Light and Life Centre,
Okay.
which is so there's a small industrial estate on. I wouldn't even say it's necessarily on the outskirts, but it's not in the town centre itself.
Parking.
Bit bigger. There's parking on site. It's a bit bigger. It's all on one floor.
Nice.
So we, again, it's all about the community. So we had that feedback. We want to go. Cool. We will act on it. There's no point having feedback if you're not going to act on it.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
So we've got. I think we've got all the vendors who came last time are returning. Plus we've got some more.
Amazing.
And one of our volunteers has gone. Gen Con is the same weekend. We need to plug it as, if you can't make it to Gen Con, come to ours.
Yeah.
So we'll work on that.
Yeah, at least it's not the same weekend as the UK Games Expo.
No, although we are off to that.
Yeah.
So are we.
Fantastic.
We'll see you there.
We will see you there.
You can find us. We'll have pasties.
So are you guys vending there? Are you walking
no,
around?
we're vending.
Fancy, we're walking around and handing out lanyards because I was like, I don't need to vend. It's not what we do.
So we are taking, with the UK Games Expo, we're taking it on two fronts. One is to basically network and info gather.
That's what we're there for.
Because there's some really good workshops.
Yep.
And the other one is to, as a shop, to sell stock.
Awesome.
But also just to publish and to advertise the benefit and the value of what can be done through this.
Oh, I'm very excited to see you guys there.
Yeah. I'm very excited to actually try and figure out what the hell we're doing. But it's going to be great.
Biggest one in the UK, and the fact, so it's amazing that not only do you have another Southwest Games Expo, which is, what's the date of that?
Saturday,
August 2nd.
August
2nd, which we're going to be there. Obviously these guys are going to be there, but also so many other amazing Cornish-based content creators, crafters. It literally is going to be the Southwest Games Expo. And then you can find these guys at the UK Games Expo, where you'll probably find us hovering around as well. So I'm also, for me, that's awesome that we're all going to the same thing.
It is. In fact, one of the vendors we had at ours, Death Trap Games.
Oh, awesome!
Take the Throne. They are 2 tables up from us.
Hey, I
at
didn't
the
realise
UKGE.
that.
So they clearly saw it on the map and they sent us a message going, "We're gonna be neighbours."
Oh, that's amazing!
Lush, to be able to have again that we're down. The furthest part of the country, and to be able to go up and go, we've already got a community up there that's supporting each
That's
other. And
absolutely incredible. That's exactly what we're after.
I should clarify, if you do come to the UK Games Expo, it's not a guarantee we'll have pasties.
It's a guarantee. Ginsters, right? They're proper Cornish pasties, right?
I've only been here for 3 years, and I already know that's a swear word. I'm
from Nottingham. It's fine. I'm allowed to swear. That's just part of the. But I agree with you. It's a.
Listen, south of the Tamar, you can't make any comments like that.
No, you can't. No, the knockers will come for me.
Yeah.
But I suppose as we move towards the back end of this interview, we've spoken about kind of where it began, who you guys are, but where can people find you?
In physical terms or online?
Both.
So online, we've got we're on Facebook and Instagram. It's just at Roll The Dice Cornwall.
Yep.
We've got our website, which has everything from our shop is on there, so you can buy stuff and just go, I don't want to pay postage, I'll just come down and collect it. But also we have...
We do post as well.
We do post, sorry, yes. If you'd like us to post, we will post.
Yeah.
But we do things like tickets for our events, like our escalation leagues and our tournaments are on there, as well as a calendar. So our Google calendar's on there, so if you want to know what we're doing, that's the most up-to-date...
we have an active Discord as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We've got like 120 people on there. Again, across various different kind of gaming interests, sharing everything from paint jobs to this is what I've cooked today. And again, it's lovely to see how that's grown. if you want to come down and see us in our HQ, is what we're calling it. We're not a shop, and we're very, very clear.
Yeah.
We are not a shop. We are a C.I.C. who has a shop. That's the Oxfam charity shop with slightly newer stuff.
Community interest company.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing is you are not a profit-based organisation that just runs a shop then does all this on the side. You are a non-profit organisation that has a shop.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
that's you are
we've
community-driven.
Yeah, and we've been very clear with different organisations in the structuring of the language of it to be clear that the shop is there to support the work of the C.I.C.
Yes.
It is not the defining factor, defining aspect of the C.I.C.
So where is HQ?
So our HQ is in Helston at 45 Monique Street. We're open Tuesday to Sundays. Tuesday to Saturdays are 10 till 10, and Sundays 10 till 4. We run a variety of sessions there, as well as just being a place where you can walk in, come and have a chat, and then walk out with no expectation of buying anything.
And I think that's the main thing. There is no expectation of anybody who wants to go down, check out some things, maybe get an intro game or something in.
Yeah.
It really is just a welcoming space where people can, come and join a community with no expectations.
Yeah, we've got a really lovely group of volunteers as well who are all we're all givers really. So if you're going to come down and you're interested in say Pokemon, we've got bulk singles and things. One of our favourite things to do is we have young people come in and you could do that whole what's your favourite Pokemon? Cool. Here you go, and you can give it to them, and it's just that lovely little kind of like moment of going, especially as we've spoken about, we've got areas of high or even low economic kind of growth in our areas. It's important to us to kind of give back, and actually, we do that with adults as well. You know, and you see it all comes full circle. You know, if someone comes in and it's like, oh, I'm really after these sort of things, and you go, cool, here you go, here's a wad of cards. It's like 50p. Then actually, you'll find that when they're in a position to do so, they are able to support back, and it all kind of comes back in.
That's amazing.
We had when we opened up HQ, we had a launch event a couple of Saturdays ago now, and it was jammed out, like absolutely crammed. But one of the lads who came bought, how much was that large pack? Like 118?
Oh yeah, he bought an entire. They bought an entire Magic the Gathering booster box.
Wow.
And just said, can you put that under the till? We'll do a draft event at some point. I've just paid for it.
That's amazing.
And it's just lush, and it all goes back in.
Yeah.
Don't tell my oldest kid that, he'll be dead. He's just picked up Magic the Gathering, and I'm like, I'm never going to financially recover from this.
Well, again, we're really fortunate, even on that side of things. So, like, we do Magic. We've got a guy called Dan, who is an ex-judge, and has played on the Pro Tour and everything.
Wow.
So he kind of runs that. For our Pokemon, we've got a couple of accredited current judges that come and help run our sessions.
That's awesome.
We do tournaments for kids and for adults as well.
With 40k, it's us.
Yeah,
And we know nothing. No. It's great.
But you say that, but you definitely have the right people, because all your volunteers and people that you work with, you've got people with special interest in that area that somebody can come in and go, I want to learn this, and there's either somebody there or somebody who is willing to go and learn a rule book and go, right, cool, we've got it, we'll teach you how to do this.
Well,
I think it's
one
amazing.
guy who volunteered who basically went, who works for, is it Mantic?
Oh yeah.
Oh nice.
On a freelance basis, and
Another Nottingham-based company.
Yeah, no, that's where all the games companies are.
Yeah.
They're led out. No, but he basically offered to become what they called.
So a Mantic Pathfinder. So he's not just ours. He is for this area of Cornwall, but he's awesome. He's wrote some of the novels for the company. He also worked with Warlord Games with some of the previous editions of Bolt Action, and he's awesome because he'll, if we need. Say Kings of War demoing and he's free, he'll be like, I'll come in and do it. That's
amazing.
fine.
Or if we have an argument about what happens in Bolt Action.
Yeah, it's the one to go to.
Yeah, I love the Mantic terrain, especially the sci-fi stuff, because obviously...
Yeah. But then outside of that, we've got the Breeny sessions, which is every Thursday in term time.
4 till 6.
Breeny Chapel, 4 till 6 in Brieg. And then we've got
the 4 to 6 is completely free.
Yeah.
Nice.
So if you've got kids, bring them along.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're now averaging between 15 and 25 kids a session there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We had 32 for a kit bashing session, which
was mental. Never doing that again.
It was lovely, but crazy.
Literally,
it's a lot of glue.
Yeah, and then we discovered, because we've got these really fancy plastic table mats, and then someone spilt an entire tub of plastic cement, and it's like, oh, this is melting.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Oh, this is fumey.
Yeah.
Get outside.
And then we've got our fortnightly adult sessions, which take place at Porthleven Public Hall. So the next one is this week.
Amazing.
So it's open to anybody.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's open to anybody. Currently this week we've got 5 games of 40k going on, but Bolt Action, Kings of War, Shatterpoint, board games, RPGs. Like, for us, the important thing is that it's a space.
Yeah.
We've got the space. We would love to see it filled with whatever you want to fill it with.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And again, if you reach out to us in advance and you go, I'm interested in learning X, can you help? We'll go X and we'll bring X, Y, Z. You turn up and we'll sort
it out.
One of the things we've been really fortunate as well is that the majority of the stuff that the C.I.C stocks within its store, we stock because there's a community who are making use of it.
Yeah.
We don't have anything, we don't sell anything that doesn't have a community.
Yeah.
So,
it's not like just empty stock or things that you're like, this is all we can offer you. It's literally like, this is what the community wants.
And that's the thing for us. One of the things which I think we were really passionate about was that it would be so easy to jump on the latest bandwagon as going, this is what's popular elsewhere. But there's nothing worse than, we were talking about this in the car on the way here, there's nothing worse than picking up something, being excited about it, and then discovering there's no community for it.
Yeah.
Or there's no support in store.
No support in store.
I think the lack of support is the thing that's hard.
Everything we sell, we sell because we can support it. We've had people ask about Yu-Gi-Oh and Digimon. At this point, we go no, because we don't want to be in a position where we go, cool, we'll hand this over, you hand us your money, and then we go, you're on your own now.
Yeah, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
That's really important that you don't do that. And I think that's definitely, something might change. You might get somebody who comes along to volunteer that is really into Yu-Gi-Oh! And you can be like, cool, we can finally offer this.
And at that point, great. If we have the capacity to support it, and we could expand that offering and we can help more people, absolutely. Like, I'd love to get into something like Shatterpoint and some of the other tabletop games, but at the moment, I don't have the brain space to...
No, it's a lot to take on so many games.
And we physically at the moment don't have the space. So, for us the next thing is the next few months is going to be looking to find that next step. We've been on a weird kind of 4-month growth cycle at the moment between inception to where we are now.
It's literally been since January 2024.
We only became a C.I.C in May. And then we only started really having a shop aspect to it in September.
Which the growth is incredible, and the fact that the community is there.
Within a year, we've done the Games Expo, we've done the first of our tournaments. We set up not just the kids group, but we set up the adults group. We had we started going into schools. We started receiving inquiries about running sessions. Weirdest thing ever was being asked by ministerial colleagues to run a D&D session to teach them how to play D&D. So they could understand what I'm talking about. It's like, but we've just had over and over again all these different requests, all these different people coming out of the woodwork going, look, can you run this, can you do that, any chance of that? We've talked with organisations all across Cornwall who either want to emulate the model that we've done or are wondering if we can come and run it for them, some of which we've been able to do, some of which it's like, honestly, we had one request to go and run something, was it like an hour's drive away? Back to the thing, it's just like, no, by the time we get there, get it set up, run the session, finish up, come home, that's like a 4-hour day, and that's a 4-hour session, and it's not going to be
viable.
It's not viable.
And it's hard picking those.
It's worth the time, but it's just not viable at this moment in time.
Hopefully it gets to the point where it is viable and you guys can take this county-wide, let alone going up to UK Games Expo, where hopefully it can be something bigger.
Peaceful and benevolent world domination is our aim here.
How very un-40k of you.
Right?
Which I think,
how far we've lost the thread.
I know, which I think is a great place to kind of wind this down and bring it back to saying goodbye, I'm afraid. Because I could sit here and just keep talking all day, but I think at this point, I will make sure that all of those links to Facebook, Instagram, to everything, if you send them to me, they'll go into the descriptions below. Also, just go follow them on socials if you are not in the local areas. If you are in the local areas, please get down and see them and go see the amazing work that Matt and Dave do, along with all the other volunteers down at Roll The Dice Cornwall. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, to listen to us. Hopefully this will be going out in podcast form as well, as I then take all the previous videos we've done and I'm going to try and turn it into a podcast as well. So if you're listening on a podcast in whenever future it is that I've done that, because time, thank you so much. May those dice gods be ever in your favour. Thank you. See you later, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.